Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Abdul, and today we are going to continue our reading of the Odyssey. Today we are going to read Book 11, The Land of the Dead. So remember, we're almost about halfway through. Remember, there are 24 books in the Odyssey. So when we last left Odysseus, he was at Circe's island and he had stayed with her for a year, and he wants to leave and he asks for help to get back to Ithaca. And she says, I only know one guy that knows the way to Ithaca, and that is Tiresias. And Odysseus says, well, I can't see Tiresias. He's dead. And she says, yes, I know. You have to go to the land of the dead in order to speak with him. So Odysseus was obviously not looking forward to, going to the land of the dead. Now, Tiresias is a blind prophet, which kind of sounds ironic because he's physically blind. He physically can't see, but he's a prophet, so he can see into the future. So, she says, go to him and he will offer you advice. And she tells him exactly what to do when he gets there in order to bring Tiresias' spirit up from the dead. Odysseus and his crew set out for the land of the dead. They arrive and find the place to which Circe has directed them. Then I addressed the blurred and breathless dead, vowing to slaughter my best heifer for them before she calved, at home in Ithaca, and burn the choice bits on the altar fire. As for Tiresias, I swore to sacrifice a black lamb, handsomest of all our flock. So Circe tells him that he needs to do a special sacrifice just for Tiresias to bring his spirit up. And the Greeks really believed in animal sacrifice. They believed that if, a god was angry with you or if you had bad luck, you could sacrifice to that god or goddess and hopefully your luck would turn around and hopefully they would not be angry with you anymore. So animal sacrifice was very important. And Odysseus does the right thing here. All right. Tiresias lives in the land of the dead. It's dark there. And he was supposed to sacrifice a black animal, which he does. He sacrifices a black lamb. It also says that it's the handsomest of all our flock. Think about it. If you were a god or a goddess, you would not want someone to sacrifice their three-legged, one-eyed goat to you. You'd be like, you're not getting what you want. All right, so Odysseus takes the best lamb that he has into the underworld to sacrifice for Tiresias. Thus, to assuage the nations of the dead, I pledge these rites. Then slash the lamb and ewe, letting their black blood stream into the well pit. So Circe told him to go to this pit in the ground, this well pit, and over the well pit, slash the lamb's throat so that the blood could go into the pit. All right, this was how, he was supposed to bring Tiresias' spirit up. Now the souls gathered, stirring out of Erebus, brides and young men, and men grown old in pain, and tender girls whose hearts were new to grief. Many were there too, torn by brazen lance heads, battle slain, bearing still their bloody gear. So as he does this, as he pours the blood into the pit, all of these spirits are coming out, okay? Not just Tiresias hasn't come out yet, but old people, young people, people still in their gear, where they died maybe from Troy. And you're going to see that he starts to recognize some of these spirits. From every side they came and sought the pit with rustling cries, and I grew sick with fear. So even Odysseus, our big epic hero, he is scared, okay? All of these spirits are surrounding him. They want to taste that blood of the animal. But presently I gave command to my officers to flay those sheep, the bronze cut down, and make burnt offerings to the flesh of the gods below, to sovereign death, to pale Persephone. Meanwhile, I crouched with my drawn sword to keep the surging phantoms from the bloody pit, till I shall know the presence of Tiresias. So he's like, guys, look, this animal is not for you. This is for Tiresias, okay? But I swear, I will sacrifice for you, when I get home on Ithaca. One shade came first, Elpenor of our company, who lay unburied still on the wide earth as we had left him, dead in Circe's hall, untouched, unmourned, when the other cares compelled us. Now when I saw him there, I wept for pity and called out to him. So as he's waiting for Tiresias, a spirit comes out that he recognizes, and it's one of his men by the name of Elpenor, who actually had died at Circe's hall, which we had never heard about. And they did not give him a proper burial, a proper funeral. And we're going to see that this is not good, okay? The Greeks believed that if they didn't get a proper burial, that their spirit could not move on and go to the underworld. So you're going to see Odysseus is very surprised that Elpenor is there in the underworld because he didn't have a proper burial. And then Odysseus feels bad that he did not give him that proper burial. So Odysseus says, "How is this, Elpenor? How could you journey to the western gloom, swifter of foot than I in the black lugger?" Elpenor sighed and answered, "Son of great Laertes, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier." Master mariner and soldier is an epithet. It tells us more about Odysseus, and we're going to learn more about that. "Bad luck shadowed me, and no kindly power. Ignoble death I drank with so much wine. I slept on Circe's roof, then could not see the long steep backward ladder coming down, and fell that height. My neck bone buckled under and snapped, and my spirit found this well of dark. Now hear the grace I pray for, in the time of those back in the world, not here, your wife and father, he who gave you bread in childhood, and your own child, your only son Telemachus, long ago left at home." So he says, well, I didn't have a very great death, a very noble death. He says, I got drunk and I was up on top of Circe's roof. And when I went to come back down, I missed the ladder and I fell. And when I fell, my neck snapped and it broke and I died. So, he's like, yeah, it wasn't very great of a death. But he says, when you make sail and put these lodgings of dim death behind, you will moor ship, I know, upon Aea Island. There, O my lord, remember me, I pray. Do not abandon me unwept, unburied, to tempt the gods' wrath, while you sail for home. But fire my corpse and all the gear I had, and build a cairn for me above the breakers, an unknown sailor's mark for men to come. Heap up the mound there and implant it upon the oar I pulled in life with my companions. So he says, please, when you leave here, I know you're going to go back to Circe's island again for the second time. Please find my body and give me that proper burial. He says, burn my body. He says, take my oar and that can be my gravestone. But he says, please don't make the gods more angry with me. They are angry with me that I'm down here in the land of the dead when I did not have a proper burial. So he says, please give me that proper burial. He ceased, and I replied. So Odysseus says, unhappy spirit, I promise you the barrow and the burial. He says, I promise you that I will give you that proper burial. So we conversed, and grimly at a distance, with my long sword between, guarding the blood, while the faint image of the lad spoke on. Now came the soul of Anticlea, dead, my mother, daughter of Autolycus, dead now, though living still when I took ship for holy Troy. Seeing this ghost, I grieved, but held her off, through pang on pang of tears, till I shall know the presence of Tiresias. Soon from the dark that prince of Thebes came forward, bearing a golden staff, and he addressed me. So as he's waiting for Tiresias and he's talking to Elpenor, he looks up and he sees his mother's spirit. He had no idea that his mom, Anticlea, was dead. All right, they didn't have communication back then. So he's so taken aback and so upset by seeing his mother there that he can't talk to her right then. And he kind of puts out his hands and holds her off, and tells her, kind of like, I'll speak to you in a minute or later. And that is when Tiresias appears. Tiresias says, son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of landways and seaways, why leave the blazing sun, O man of woe, to see the cold dead and the joyless region? Stand clear, put up your sword. Let me but taste of blood, I shall speak true. So he says, let me taste the blood on your sword, Odysseus, and I will tell you what you want to know. At this I stepped aside, and in the scabbard let my long sword ring home to the pommel silver, as he bent down to the somber blood. Then spoke the prince of those with gift of speech. So Tiresias says, Great captain, a fair win and the honey lights of home are all you seek. But anguish lies ahead. The God who thunders on the land prepares it, not to be shaken from your track, implacable, in rancor for the son whose eye you blinded. So he says, I know all you want to do is get home, but he says, Poseidon is still angry with you. Okay? You blinded his son, you wouldn't give him thanks, for sending his sea serpent. So he's still angry with you. One narrow strait may you take through his blows, denial of yourself, restraint of shipmates. When you make landfall on Thrinacia first and quit the violet sea, dark on the land you'll find the grazing herds of Helios, by whom all things are seen, all speech is known. Avoid those kind, hold fast to your intent, and hard seafaring you brings you all to Ithaca. But if you raid the beeves, I see destruction for ship and crew, though you survive alone, bereft of all companions, lost for years, under strange sail shall you come home. So he says, one of the places that you're going to stop on the way home is going to be Thrinacia, and that is Lord Helios's island. Lord Helios is the sun god. So he says, on Lord Helios's island are these cattle, and these cattle are not to be touched. They're supposed to be immortal. So he says, if you land on the island and you don't touch the cattle, I see you and all of your men making it safely home. But if you kill that cattle, or if your men kill that cattle, all right, you will be the only survivor. Well, sadly, we know that Odysseus is the only one to make it home from the land of Troy. So, more than likely, what do you think his men do? Yeah, they eat the cattle, and we're going to find out why. He says, and then, you're going to finally make it home. He says, once you make it home, bereft of all companions, lost for years under strange sail, shall you come home to find your own house filled with trouble, insolent men eating your livestock as they court your lady. Remember in the epic notes, I talked about how when Odysseus makes it home, over 100 suitors, 100 men are trying to take over his kingdom. They're trying to marry Penelope so that they can have that power of being the king. So if they see Odysseus, they would kill him. He says, but you shall make those men atone in blood. He says, don't worry, you'll kill them, Odysseus. He says, but after you have dealt out death in open combat or by stealth to all the suitors, go overland on foot and take an oar, until one day you come where men have lived with meat unsalted, never known the sea, nor seen sea-going ships, with crimson bows and oars that fledge light hulls for dipping flight. The spot will soon be plain to you, and I can tell you how. Some passerby will say, what winnowing fin is that upon your shoulder? Halt, and implant your smooth oar in the turf, and make fair sacrifice to the Lord Poseidon, a ram, a bull, a great buck boar. So he says, after you kill all the suitors and you finally win your kingdom of Ithaca back, he says you need to do 2 sacrifices, animal sacrifices. Remember, they're very important to the Greeks. He says you need to do one big special sacrifice to Poseidon because it's him that finally allowed you to make it home. He says, take an oar, put it on your shoulder, and walk inland, and keep walking until someone says, what winnowing fan is that upon your shoulder? What are you carrying? They live so far inland, they've never seen the sea, or they've never seen the water, so they wouldn't know what an oar was. He says, when someone says that to you, you stop, put the oar in the ground, and make one big sacrifice of a ram, a bull, a great buck boar. Okay? So you're going to make one huge sacrifice just for Poseidon. okay? Because he deserves that one special sacrifice. When you're done with that, he says, then carry out pure hecatombs at home to all wide heaven's lords, the undying gods, to each in order. So he says, when you're done with that sacrifice for Poseidon, go home and sacrifice a hecatomb, which is the killing or the sacrificing of 100 animals, okay, 100 cattle to every god, to all the gods, to thank them for allowing you to make it home. Then a sea-born death, soft as this hand of mist, will come upon you when you are wearied out with rich old age. Your country folk and blessed peace surround you, and all of this shall be just as I foretell. So he says, if you follow what I say, all right, if you do these two sacrifices, I see you living out an old life and you're going to die a very peaceful death. Odysseus now is going to speak to his mother finally, now that he's done with Tiresias. She tells him that Penelope and Telemachus are still grieving for him, and that his father Laertes has moved to the country, where he too mourns his son. She says, they all think that you're dead, so they're mourning you. Odysseus's mother explains that she died from a broken heart. Now, our textbook does not tell you, but sadly, his mother committed suicide. She thought that Odysseus was dead and that he was not coming home. And she was so upset by this that she took her own life. She drowned herself. And sadly, we'll see that in the movie. So Odysseus is doubly heartbroken because he's seeing his mother. He's finding out his mother is dead in a place where he doesn't want to be, the underworld, the land of the dead. And then she says, it's kind of your fault while I'm here. I thought you were dead. You haven't made it home yet from Troy. And I took my own life because of that. Odysseus also speaks with the spirits of many great ladies and men who died, as well as those who were being punished for their earthly sins. Filled with horror, Odysseus and his crew set sail. And that is the end of our reading today. The next time we read, we'll read Book 12.